Welcome to Object-Oriented Programming course. In today's lecture, we will learn about applets, Java applets, then key features of Java programming language, then the structure of a Java program, then different types of commands, garbage collection, and tokens or the lexical issues. Java applets. An applet is a Java program that usually runs within a web browser. This is to make interactive web pages with better graphical user interfaces. Here you can see some examples for the applets. See, in this particular case, one card game is getting displayed under a web browser. Here another calculator is getting displayed under a web browser. Here another applet is getting displayed. So in all these three cases, this applet program is getting executed under a Java supported web browser. It can be Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, whatever it is. It should be Java supported. Java enabled web browser can run the applet. So, but along with JDK, there is something called applet viewer. Even you can use applet viewer to run your Java applet. In this particular case, your applet is getting loaded in the applet viewer, and here it is getting displayed. So, in the purpose of applet, Java applet is to enhance or create web pages with better user interface. An applet is a special kind of Java program that is designed to be transmitted over internet and automatically executed by a Java compatible web browser. It runs inside the web browser and works at the client side. Applets are used to make the web page more dynamic and entertaining. In the case of internet, there is something called the web concept of web server and web client. When you access a web page, see, if you are accessing the web page of for google.com, means from the web browser you are sending a request to the google.com's web server. In response to that, that server will send you a web page with the desired content. On parsing that content, if there is a Java applet present, means used in that particular web page, then there will be within the HTML code there will be a applet tag. So web browser, based on this tag, your web browser can understand that okay, this particular web page is asking for, it is using some Java applet. Then your web browser will initiate another request to the web server, and web server will respond with the corresponding Java applet. Now the applet is transmitted over the internet to the client, and the client will execute the Java applet, and it will produce the required display under that particular web browser. That is the overview of the execution of a Java applet. Java applet security aspects. Applets are not standalone programs. We said it already. You need either an applet viewer or a Java enabled web browser. Instead, they run within a web browser or an applet viewer tool. Java applets are loaded on client when the user visits a page containing an applet. To protecting the user from malicious applets, several restrictions are imposed. You don't know what kind of applet is and whether there is any malicious intention behind that applet. That is not known to the user who is visiting that web page. So there should be some measures to protect that user from the dangerous applets. Applets are either sandbox applets or privileged applets. Sandbox applets are run in a security sandbox that restricts many operations. An applet cannot load libraries or define native methods. Ordinarily, it cannot read or write files on the execution host. It cannot create any file, or it cannot delete any file on the machine where it is running. It cannot read certain system properties. It cannot make network connections except to the host from where it came from. So the applet can make a network connection only to the web server from where it is downloaded. It cannot communicate with any other network address. They cannot run any programs on the local computer. So because of these restrictions, applets are safe to use in web pages. So you don't need to worry whether the downloaded applet will harm your machine. So that situation is not possible because of these restrictions. These restrictions are to provide security. So here you can see within web browser, there will be Java plugin. Under Java plugin, your applets are getting executed within the sandbox. So for the time being, you can visualize it something like your applet is running within a box, and to access anything outside the box, it requires permissions. So depending upon the trust level of the applet, it may or may not access. So there is a control for the user. Applet lifecycle. When an applet is executed within a web browser or in an applet window, it gets through 4 stages of its lifecycle: newborn or the initialized, run or started, idle or stopped, and destroyed. Applets are subclasses of java.applet.applet class. So if you are creating a Java applet, essentially what you are doing is that you are creating a derived class of this particular applet class. Means you will create a class which is inheriting from this class. Okay, major applet methods. Init, this is the first method to be called. This method is where you should initialize the variables. This method is called only once. Next thing is start, called after init. It is also called to restart the applet after it has been stopped. So applet state can switch between running and idle. So once it is in the idle state, and if you have to restart it again, the start method will be invoked. So the start stop can happen many times. Paint method is called each time to redraw the applet window. We said it is for the it is to create nice graphical user interface. So each time when you make any change to the display, it has to be redrawn. So for that purpose, this method is getting called automatically, this paint method. So for this particular method, one parameter is passed. For other methods, no arguments are passed. Okay, stop method is called when the web browser leaves the HTML document containing the applet. Destroy method is to completely unload the applet from the memory. To destroy the entire applet, means with that particular applet, destroy method is called. And all these methods are called by the web browser or the container which is running the applet. So that lifecycle is something like, once you load the applet into the container's memory, init method is called. This will initialize all the initial variables and other things specified in your applet code. Once it is initialized, when the web browser calls the start method, your applet will start running. Now to redraw the window, depending upon the requirement, it will call the paint method to create the user interface display. Then if you minimize the page, you minimize that particular web page, then applet will move to the idle state by calling the stop method. Okay, when you maximize the page, again it will move to the move from the idle state to run state by calling the start method. When you are closing that particular web page, now your browser can unload your applet from the memory and it can move to the dead state. Here is a quick comparison between a Java applet and a normal Java program. In normal Java program, there is a main method. Till now, we haven't seen the structure of the Java program, but just for your information, I am telling. But in an applet program, there is no main method or the main function. And to execute an applet program, you need a Java-enabled web browser. But for a normal Java program, you need only JRE. You have to install Java runtime environment. Then you can run the Java program. Then, in terms of security restriction, your normal Java program can access all the resources in your machine. It can access files, it can do anything, it is free to do anything. But whereas your applet is having only very restricted access to the machine where it is running. So these are the major features of Java applet. Now we are coming to the Java buzzwords, or nothing but the features of Java programming. Important features of Java language. First one is simplicity, object-oriented, portable, platform-independent, secure, robust, architecture-neutral, interpreted, high-performance, multi-threaded, distributed, and dynamic. Let's see each of them in detail. Okay, simplicity means this feature is very popular. We should say thanks to certain movies. Anyway, now we need to understand why it is simple. See, our goal is to understand the reason behind the simplicity. Java is simple because the syntax is very similar to C, C++. If you know the C programming, you know 60% of the syntax. And but with respect to the object-oriented part, you are missing. If you already understand the basic concepts of object-oriented programming, learning Java will be even easier. So the person who is knowing C, C++ can easily learn Java. In Java, it has removed many complicated and rarely used features. For example, pointers or operator loading. These things are removed from the Java programming. For a C++ programmer, pointer is one of the most confusing area. But that tricky area is removed from Java programming. There is no need for remove unreferenced objects because there is an automatic garbage collection in Java. This is another area. In many cases, programmers will make mistake in releasing memory. They will allocate some memory dynamically in your C++ programs. Once you allocate that, it is up to the programmer to release that memory. They won't, in many times they may forget to release that memory. That will lead to the memory leak in the program, and stability issues will be there. So such kind of headaches will not be there in your Java program because programmer is not responsible for that particular task. There is something called automatic garbage collection in Java. So because of these reasons, Java programming is considered to be simple. Object-oriented, we already said Java supports object-oriented programming. Java is an object-oriented programming language. It is strictly object-oriented. In Java, whatever you do, it will be classes and objects. There is no other way to do programming. But in C++ that was possible. But in the case of Java, that is not possible. Object-oriented programming means we organize our software as combination of types of objects with both data and behavior. We already learned the basic concepts of object orientation. Means all those features are supported in Java. Now another thing is platform independency. That is also we discussed in detail in the beginning. Java is a in previous lecture we discussed it. Java is platform independent because Java bytecode or class file can run on any platform. Just copy the class file to the new platform and run using a Java interpreter. JRE has to be there. Java runtime environment has to be there in your platform. Then you can run Java. Class file contains the platform independent bytecode which can run on any platform with Java virtual machine. That is the key. So Java is platform independent. Robust. Robustness is the property of being strong and healthy. Java is robust because there is automatic memory management. So the problem of memory leak will not happen in your Java program. So this memory leak was a major stability issue in most of the programs. See, in your you might have experience with your mobile phones. Many times, your mobile after continuous usage of some games or some things and all, your phone will become slower. Once you restart it, it will come back to the normalcy. Many times, memory leak is the key reason behind that. Okay. There is automatic memory management, garbage collection in Java, which runs on JVM to get rid of the objects which are not being used anymore. So Java will take care of that. So memory leaks won't happen. So that problem is removed from the Java programs. There is a lack of explicit pointer concept that avoids security problems. See, pointer is a very powerful concept. It is giving you directly access to the memory or the hardware. So a programmer can do anything with the pointer, and if there is an error with the pointer handling, even that can also lead to some unexpected behavior in your program. But in the case of Java, there is no explicit pointer access to the programmer. So that is also adding to the stability. Other thing is that exception handling. Java supports very detailed and proper exception handling mechanism and type checking mechanism. So even in the case of exception, your program can manage that gracefully. So due to these three features, Java programs are very robust compared to C++ programs. Interpreted. Java programs are compiled into an intermediate representation called Java bytecode. The bytecode is interpreted to any machine code so that it runs on that native machine. So Java program is first you will compile it and you will create the class file. then you have to interpret it. So Java is interpreted, and here the advantage is that because of this interpreter, it to run the Java program, you don't need too much of memory and all. So there you need only minimal resources. It is not compilation, it is interpretation. So it is getting accomplished part by part. So the resource requirement or the memory requirements for the interpretation is less compared to the compilation. Another important feature is the security. Java is secure. We can develop virus-free systems. It is secure because no explicit pointer. Java programs run inside virtual machine, so it cannot directly do any nonsense in your hardware. It is within the virtual machine. JVM has class loader to load the Java class dynamically. It adds security by separating the packages for the classes of the local file system from those classes are imported from the network. So at the time of class loading itself, it is assigning different levels to the locally loaded classes and the classes which are downloaded from the network. So there also it is adding additional security that the classes downloaded from the network won't be given much permissions to damage your system. And bytecode verifier, that is also part of the JVM. We already discussed at the time when we learned about JVM. So this bytecode verifier checks the code fragments for illegal codes that can violate the access rights to objects. Then the security manager determines what resources a class can access. Java language provides these securities by default. Some security can also be provided by an application developer by explicitly using secure socket layer or other application level security can also be added. Platform itself is providing you a lot of security mechanisms by default. See, from this diagram you can actually get an overview. This is your operating system. Within that operating system, your application is C++ application is directly C++ executable is directly getting executed on top of the within the operating system. But in the case of Java, it is getting executed within the JVM. Only JVM is directly executing within the operating system. So your Java program cannot directly create any damage to the OS. It has to bypass the OS for doing that, but that is not allowed. It is running within the virtual machine, and virtual machine will not provide it to do any harmful things to the operating system. That's where it is becoming more secure. Architecture neutral, that is again related to the platform independency. Java is architecture neutral because there are no implementation depends on the features. Implementation depend features. For example, okay, this is one important point. The size of an integer in C program is not specified by the language. It depends upon the machine where it is executing. But in the case of Java, the size of an integer, I'm telling about integer, not only for integer, for all the data types, size is specified by the language. So if it is a Java program, whether it is running in 32-bit machine or 64-bit machine, whatever case, the size of that each data type will be fixed. But that was not the case for earlier languages. So this is a very important improvement which makes it architecture neutral. Next thing is portable. Java is portable because it facilitates you to carry the Java bytecode to any platform. It doesn't require any modification to the bytecode. You can directly run the bytecode on a platform where there is a JVM. High performance. Java is faster than other traditional interpreted programming languages such as BASIC or any interpreted language. Java is faster because Java bytecode is very much close to native code. So the translation from bytecode to native code won't take much time because they are very much similar. So this, even though it is interpreted, this Java is very much faster compared to any other interpreted language. But still, it is a little slower than compiled languages like C, C++. That is there. But if you compare it with any other interpreted language, its performance is much better because the difference between the bytecode and the native machine code is very less. So the translation is very faster. Another feature is distributed. Java is distributed because it facilitates you to create a distributed application in Java. Remote method invocation or extended Java bean are used for creating distributed applications. These features of Java makes us able to access files by calling methods from any machine to machine on internet. See, the concept is something like that. You will see you have a program. Within that program you will be using some methods, you will be invoking some methods, but that method may be getting executed on a remote machine. From your local machine you are invoking the method running on a remote machine. So that is supported by these RMI and EJB and all. So it supports distributed application development. Another thing is multi-threading. A thread or lightweight process is a single sequential flow of control within a program. Java supports multiple concurrent threads with APIs to manage the thread states. So within a program, you can create multiple threads. We can write Java program that deal with many tasks at once by defining multiple threads. So that is another important feature which is needed for any application development. Dynamic. Java supports dynamic loading of classes. That means it means classes are loaded on demand at runtime. Means all the classes won't be loaded in the beginning. So classes will be loaded only when they are actually required at runtime. There is some benefit of see, Java is intended to run on resource stringent devices or like embedded devices. So if you have to load all the libraries in the beginning, that means your system should have more memory. Java is actually going by the on-demand loading. So it is supporting the dynamic class loading. Then another dynamic feature is like Java supports dynamic compilation and automatic memory management. Automatic memory management is nothing but garbage collection at JVM level. These two features are at JVM level. So Java is a language which supports these dynamic features. Now let us learn about garbage collection. Already I explained it. Memory leak is a type of resource leak that occurs when a computer program fails to release the allocated memory after use. You forget to release the memory which is allocated after the usage. That is the situation of memory leak. This is a common issue in C++ programs. Java's answer to this issue is automatic garbage collection. When JVM starts up, it creates a heap area which is known as runtime data area. This is where all the objects, instance of classes are stored. The process of removing unused objects from the heap memory is known as garbage collection, and this is part of memory management in Java. In Java, garbage means unreferenced object, means unused object. You don't need it anymore, so you can remove it. So such objects are known as garbage. In Java, responsibility of releasing unused memory is with Java virtual machine, not with the programmer. So you don't need to worry whether the programmer will make some mistake or not. That issue is not there because JVM is taking care of that memory release. In C++, programmer is responsible for memory release, and it is the major reason for memory leaks and program crashes. So that headache is removed in Java by adding the feature of automatic garbage collection. We already know that garbage is nothing but unused or unreferenced object. Main objective of garbage collector is to free heap memory by destroying unreachable or unused objects. Unreachable object. An object is said to be unreachable when there is no valid references to that object exist. If nobody is using that object, then it is unreachable. Eligibility for garbage collection. Object must be unreachable, then only you can delete it. Otherwise, your program will crash because somebody else will make a request to that object and that will fail. Finalize method. This is a very important method. This method is invoked each time before the object is garbage collected, and it is intended to perform cleanup processing. So, in your class, if you want to do any specific, in every class, you can there is a concept of overriding. You can implement this finalize method. So this JVM will make a call to this method at the time of garbage collection. So when at the time of releasing it from the memory, if you want to do any additional cleanup operation, such instructions has to be given in this finalize method. So this method will be automatically called, and whatever instructions you have given in that finalize method will be executed at the time of releasing the object from memory. So this method is invoked each time before the object is garbage collected, and it is intended to perform cleanup processing. So in every class, if you want to do any specific cleanup operation, then you need to implement this finalize method, and you have to give the instructions in that method. So that will be used at the time of releasing it from the memory. Garbage collector releases only those objects that are created by using new keyword. So the means we will come to see, you will be clear at the time of learning that programming. So there is some keyword to create the object, that is new keyword. Using this keyword, if you create an object, for such object only this garbage collection mechanism is applicable. So if we have created any object without using new operator, if you have created any object, for such things you have to give explicit cleanup instructions in your finalize method. Otherwise, you don't need to specify anything in the finalize method. See, this finalize is, see, you have created some file handle or some operating system resources in your program. Such things, if you want to free, means if you want to close the file or such things you have to give in your finalize method. So at the time of releasing your main object from the memory, this finalize method will be executed. Whatever instructions you have given in that finalize will be executed, and it will do all the cleanup operations. So here you can see how the garbage collection happens. We can request to JVM to garbage collection. However, it is up to the JVM when to start the garbage collector. So there is a method GC. That method is used to call the garbage collector explicitly. It is only a request to the JVM for garbage collection. However, GC method does not guarantee that your JVM will perform the garbage collection at that time itself. You can request to the garbage collector, but it is not guaranteed that your request is handled at that time. This means the system, this GC method is present in two classes, system and runtime classes. The functionality of both are same. So using GC method, your program can make an explicit result request to perform the cleanup, but it is not guaranteed. JVM will decide when to do the cleanup. You can request it. It may or may not perform the cleanup immediately after the GC. That is not guaranteed. Okay, but what you have to once after the usage to the object, you have to assign null value so that you can clean up that reference. So another thing is that by assigning references to another, in that case also you can release the reference by anonymous object. Anonymous object is another case where that object is unreferenced, because you are not creating any named reference to that object. You are creating the object, using it. After that, it can be garbage collected by the GC. So this is all about requesting for garbage collection. You can make a request, but it is not guaranteed that when it is getting acknowledged. It means garbage collection decision is at the JVM. Okay. Next part is the Java commands and program structure that we will learn in the next class. Thank you.